What's up, y'all? MMA Outlaw back here with another video. Today we're going to be breaking down each fight that just happened last night at UFC Strickland versus Hernandez. And we got the face cam up and working, so really excited to kick this off, and let's get right into it. First fight of the night was Juliana Miller versus Carli Judice. The fight went pretty much how we expected it to go. Carli Judice with a much cleaner striking on the outside. We thought Carli Judice was going to win by a second or third round KO. Ended up getting the unanimous decision. Started piecing up Juliana Miller at the end of the first. And as we said, Miller just comes forward with those hands down and, not the most talented fighter. So Carli Judice win. Not exactly right on the prediction, but, on the right side of it for sure. Then the next fight, Jordan Leavitt versus Yadier del Valle. Jordan Leavitt with an impressive move down to 145. Facing off against Yadier del Valle. I thought the power, the stockiness, the boxing of del Valle and the ability to, stay grounded in his stance would have allowed him to, beat up a guy like Jordan Leavitt. But Jordan Leavitt cashes as like a plus 315 underdog. Wow, what a great night for the underdogs, which we'll get to a little bit later. Honestly, just an all-around solid performance from Jordan Leavitt. Looked really, really dominant on the ground, really strong, and so his camp should be very happy with that. And surprising for us to see that, but great performance from Jordan Leavitt, the Monkey King. Then Jean Paul versus the boy, the Fresh Prince, Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe actually came out and started, surprised me a little bit. He was using the lead left hook to the body, lead uppercut, to the body, and then coming up with the right straight over the top. He was switching stances pretty well, and honestly, Jean Paul looked really good when he had him on the ground. But man, it was a tough fought decision. I thought Jean Paul would have won a little bit more clearly against Phil Rowe, would have created a little bit more of a gap between himself and Phil Rowe, but was able to get the split decision, and I agree with the decision at that. And then so moving on to the next one, we got our first best bet of the night. The Carli Judice by KO didn't go our way, but the first best bet winner, this was my biggest play of the night. Punahele Soriano versus Ramiz Brahimaj. I had my whole house squad riding Punahele Soriano, getting it done. I had him by decision as well at plus 260 and him to win the fight at minus 110. What a great way to really kick off the card with a big old bang. Puna really clearly won the second and third round. Ramiz came out there and looked incredibly clean in the striking. Looked really clean in the striking and honestly was taking Puna down at will. But then you saw the middleweight strength from Puna. He would get taken down and it was pretty much a reversal every time where Puna would end up on top or end up with it being the man to put Ramiz against the cage. And by the end of the third round, Ramiz was just gassed. I mean, Puna clearly took over in the later rounds, which is surprising, especially because Ramiz is a little bit of a smaller welterweight, and Puna is that middleweight coming down to fight at welterweight. But Puna is now 4-0 at welterweight and a great win to add to his resume. And Ramiz Brahimaj, for him, it's back to the drawing board. So moving on, we got Joselyne Edwards versus Nora Cornolle. Joselyne Edwards, man, my freaking lady. Joselyne, one of the most talented women's MMA fighters that we see, just on pure talent, has ability to kick at range, has ability to throw hands at distance, but Nora Cornolle was beating her up. This was actually a very entertaining women's MMA fight. Joselyne Edwards was trying to close the distance. Nora Cornolle was clipping her, lighting her up. And then when Joselyne Edwards got inside, got against the clinch, that's when you saw some of the big knees, some elbows against the fence. She really started to work on her, wear down Nora Cornolle, and that was huge for Joselyne Edwards. Then she came in with that huge slam and freaking landed Nora Cornolle right on that shoulder. Nora Cornolle was screaming and rivaling around in pain. It was not a pleasant sight to see. I wonder what the diagnosis of that one will be. It was either like a collarbone or a shoulder, and it did not look pretty, but nonetheless, Joselyne Edwards gets it done by decision. Whoever the ref was in that fight needs to be crucified. Nora Cornolle was unconscious, taking repeated hammer fists that woke her up. And then Joselyne Edwards was like, fuck, I guess I just have to lock in the submission. I guess I just have to lock in the choke because that's the only way I'm going to be able to put this girl away because the ref won't stop me from freaking killing her. We had some really bad reffing on this fight, and we'll get into on not just this fight, but on this fight card. And so we're going to get into some of that a little bit later. Alden Coria versus Gurule. Gurule came out there throwing in the third round, kind of like what we had expected. Big old plotting, Miles Johns-like type, throwing those big overhands, trying to do anything that he can to land, a big looping punch. And Alden Coria was just too dang creative, too dang quick from the outside, in and out, controlling distance incredibly well, and really just pieced up Gurule for all 15 minutes of the fight. I thought he was going to be able to potentially get a finish maybe there towards the end. Started really piecing up Gurule, but really got a very dominant unanimous decision, and really excited to see what's next for Alden Coria in his career. Looked really, really strong in the striking. Osbourne versus Alibi Idiris. I had Alibi Idiris, another prediction correct, winning the unanimous decision. I thought potentially he was going to be able to get it done by submission, and there was a chance there in the second round where that plus 700 Alibi Idiris by submission was looking a little bit strong, but the Kazakhstani man was just too much for Osbourne over 3 rounds. I really think we saw a really solid performance from both men, to be honest. But Alibi Idiris was just better everywhere, to be quite honest. Sometimes Ode was catching him coming in with one of Ode's patented hooks, but just didn't look too great from either one of them. Honestly, wasn't too impressed. But a unanimous decision win for him nonetheless. Then moving on to the feature prelim of the evening, Chidi, Bang Bang, and Njokuani at plus 120, taking the L to Carlos Leal. Carlos Leal, man, I swear he's like one of the most bipolar fighters I've ever seen in my entire life. He fights against Muslim Salikov, and is that the fight? I'm drawing a blank, but he looked terrible in one of his fights that he had a KO loss in. He was coming forward with reckless abandon and just got clipped. And we saw him coming forward with what I believe was the reckless abandon as well. And Chidi Bang Bang just looked a little bit overwhelmed. I really believe that Chidi, with that kickboxing background, was going to be able to stand his ground, maybe come in with some step-in elbows as Carlos was coming forward, maybe even like a spinning back elbow, because Carlos Leal really is that pressure guy. And I thought Chidi was going to have some creative techniques to be able to keep him at bay and do a lot of damage. But he ends up losing the unanimous decision, and so that's another one of the best bets down. And so we are going to keep on moving on to Michel Pereira versus Reese. And so this was, what a horrible fight. I mean, Michel Pereira getting hit in the nuts, 2-3 times, and it didn't even look like nut shots. I mean, I want to give my man the benefit of the doubt, but I mean, those looked like they were on the stomach, or at least, we had one that was just straight up on his thigh. Like, come on. And then we had we had 2 eye pokes maybe from Reese. This fight was stopped way, way, way too many times. And so Michel Pereira versus Reese, I know the verdict scorecard had it going to Reese. I had a little bit of coin on Michel Pereira, and I appreciated the Michel Pereira win right there. But I definitely think Reese pulled out that fight 2-1. I definitely think Reese pulled out that fight 2-1. I think he clearly won 2 rounds in that fight. And, the judges' scorecards went to Michel Pereira. I don't hate it. I think a point could have been taken from Reese for all of those fouls, but I do think Michel Pereira was milking it a bit, just doing anything he can to get some time to recover. And so, yeah. We move on to the next. Jacobe Smith versus Josiah Harrell. Jacobe Smith coming in with a big performance of the night, baby, for my boy Kobe. I was thrilled with Jacobe Smith's performance, looking absolutely dominant against what is, a highly respected prospect in Josiah Harrell. Jacobe Smith piecing him up on the feet, the power, the calmness that he has, the presence that he has in the octagon is very clear to see. And then once, Josiah Harrell went for that takedown, Jacobe Smith just rolled right with him, rolled through over to the top, kind of had him in like a it wasn't a crucifix, the total crucifix position, but kind of had him in side control with a little bit of control of that one arm. And it was just hammer fist coming down, hammer fist coming down. And the ref got mad at Jacobe Smith in this one too. Another horrible reffing performance. You know, Jacobe Smith, Josiah Harrell is unconscious. And the ref is like, stop. Yo, get in there, referee. You're letting this man, Josiah Harrell, take more brain damage after he already had that surgery on his freaking brain, putting a metal plate in his skull. Like, come on. Jacobe Smith absolutely freaking pieced him up. And so, you know, a great performance from Jacobe Smith. You know, we really do love to see that. And we had a little sprinkle of Jacobe Smith at plus 180 by KO. We also had a Michel Pereira, Jacobe Smith moneyline parlay. So you really, really do love to see that. A great performance from Jacobe Smith, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him. And, you know, if you're really curious to see what's next for all these guys, just tune into the next video, right? So then the next fight, we got Sergey Spivak versus Ante Delia. Wow, what a performance from Sergey. This was not at all the type of fight that I was expecting. This fight stayed on the feet significantly longer than I wanted it to. And I thought that if it stayed on the feet for this long, that Ante Delia was going to take the win. But Sergey Spivak looked really good on the feet in round one, piecing up Ante. Ante had some serious bleeding going on, coming from somewhere. I don't know if it was his nose or if he had a cut on his face, but man, that Sergey Spivak right hand looked good. Sergey Spivak looked fast down the middle, and so did Ante. And honestly, I think this bodes well for Sergey. He didn't look like he had that great of a ground performance, but we know for Sergey that he has that ground ability. And so there's a lot to be excited about for Sergey Spivak, able to beat a guy like Ante Delia, to see, you know, what's next in the heavyweight division for Sergey. And to be honest, what is the worst division by far in the UFC. So a lot of opportunity here for Sergey. Now getting into the big fights of the night. We had Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa, and man, did Melky look good. I thought Dan Ige could come in, use some of that patented wrestling. And, you know, he did get a takedown in this fight. You know, he did shoot and he did secure one. But even when he got that takedown, Melky was too crafty on the feet. You could see the youth in Melky's game. A little bit too quick everywhere, too quick on the feet. That kicking game of Melky, man. That kicking game of Melky, I said that Morgan Charrier head kick knockout was a fluke, and I guess I got proved wrong. Man, did Melky look good. I've never been a Melquizael Costa believer. I'm still not totally sold on Melky Costa, but man, that spinning back kick to the face, he just caught heel straight to the chin, went flying backwards, and I did. Again, the referees here, man, the refs, I did think that stoppage was a little early. Dan Ige was clearly shelled up, trying to, you know, last the last 8 seconds of the round to get to the next one. And I thought they could have given my boy Dan $100,000, Ige, a little bit more of a chance. But, you know, when you hit someone with that spinning head kick, like Melky did, spinning back kick to the dome is no joke. And so I do understand the stoppage. The little sprinkle on Dan Ige did not work out, but he was a huge underdog, just like some of our other underdog picks. And, you know, a lot of those underdogs were successful. Dan Ige, you know, was simply not one of them. Moving on to Jeff Neal versus Uros Medic. Man, people were picking hands of steel Jeff Neal in the big 2-6. Come on, baby. Uros, the Medic with a huge win. And honestly, Uros Medic just looked way faster than Jeff. Jeff looked like he was, you know, feet stuck to the ground, glue on his feet, could not move fast enough for Uros. Uros was in and out, straight down the middle, and then came in with that big left hand that just really, it looked like it just grazed Jeff Neal. It didn't even look like it really squared him up. But we know that, man, if you get squared up by Uros Medic, and even if you don't get squared up with Uros Medic, he's put many guys out. Uros is not the guy to play with. And so a great win from Uros, a plus 180 underdog that cashed, a plus 250 to win by knockout that cashed. you gotta be happy with that performance. If your Euros' camp got in there, made quick work of Jeff Neal. Hands looked really fast, and so a lot of exciting things to come here for Euros. And finally, the main event of the evening, Sean Strickland versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Man, did I get this fight spot on? Did I get this fight spot on? You love to see it. You love to see it. Sean Strickland coming out, jab down the pipe, teep right down the middle, left hand coming in behind that. This fight, Sean brought out some of that real fighting spirit that we haven't seen. Usually we just see jab and Strickland, hand behind it, Philly shell bang, just trying to come down the middle, trying to keep it simple. But we saw Sean throwing some looping punches there, and it was exciting to see. I knew that Fluffy Hernandez, I told you guys, that midsection, look at it. His nickname is Fluffy for a reason. You can't look like that as a UFC fighter. He's been hurt to the body before. And man, Sean Strickland hit him with that knee to the solar plexus, and it sent him out. And then from there it was wraps. Sean was piecing him up against the fence. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez tried to push through. We know that he's a savage, has always looked good, always came forward, but you just knew this was a bad matchup for Fluffy. This was a bad matchup. Sean Strickland is one of the only guys who has the cardio to go like this. He can go with anyone. He has incredible takedown defense, and Sean Strickland is sparring all the time. So we can bring in hella training partners just like Fluffy. Just come in, dive at his legs, get a fresh guy in there. Come in, dive at his legs, get a fresh guy in there. And to be honest, Sean Strickland just looked much cleaner on the feet. Fluffy really tried to bring the fight to Strickland, but it just did not work out for Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. And we got a big W from Sean Strickland at what was that? He was plus 200, plus 225. I saw on some books. I mean, man, that was, an interesting line set there. Fluffy, what's his best win? Roman Dolidze? That's what we were talking about. And now he's fighting Sean Strickland. So, huge win there from Strickland, finishing out the night strong for us. We ended up going, if you just go on strict picks, we went 11 for 14 on the card. Our only losses were Chidi Bang Bang and Njokuani was the big best bets loss. The other big best bets loss was Carli Judice by KO. But overall, on the fight card, only 3 fights wrong, 11 out of 14 on the predictions. I'll take that all day. A little bit of profit there with the sprinkles that we had and all the plus money out there on the board. So just thrilled with that evening. It was a great night of fights. And you guys got to check out the next video. The next video I post will be every fight to make after UFC Strickland versus Hernandez. So I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thank you all for watching with me. And MMA Outlaw out.